Don and Mo in the family, and one who is sitting by the side of Don. She's Marsha. They are the core of the Divine Life spiritual family of Gurudev in the East Coast. And now I come to the fourth speaker, who has been one of the moving spirits in bringing the spiritual message of Swami Chidananda in our own circle. And she came into contact with the Gurudev when she was a student of 19 years of age, still in the teens. And that was in the year 1957. She had heard of Gurudev, she read a book, and then she wanted to spend her vacation with Gurudev, and so she came to Rishikesh Ashram and stayed there for about 4 months. And under the direct personal inspiration, darshan, satsang, teaching and guidance of Gurudev. She was keen to learn yoga, and Gurudev put her in the charge of one of the yoga instructors in the Shivananda Ashram, Rishikesh, under whom she learned. And then before she went, they asked her to give a demonstration and satsang. And she was highly pleased. And then she returned to Europe, and soon after she migrated to Canada and settled down in Montreal, Quebec, East Coast. And it is there she had the great experience of coming into contact with Swami Gurudevananda, whom Gurudev sent to the West in 1956, but it took a whole year before he came to the States, because he went to about 10 countries before he could come and land in the west coast of the United States. And it was there he started the yoga center in New York first, and then afterwards the center in Montreal. It was one of his oldest Yoga Vedanta centers, Montreal. And Sitaji was one of his earliest yoga instructors in his center. That was in the year 1959 maybe. Because when I came to the States in 59 and was traveling, Swami Vishnu called me to his center in Montreal in April of 1960. At that time she was already teaching yoga. So she has been in yoga teaching since 1959-60. Sita Franco. She has a branch of the Divine Society in Maryland, and her place is named Yoga Sadhana Ashram, YSM, Sita Franco. But you need not be restricted right time.
Now, since Swamiji has given my life story, I thought I may share with you.
You can repeat something if you want to.
A little bit about my stay of the 4 months at Shivananda Ashram. And I must ask you to be a little bit patient with us, because as he said, I was a teenager. So I'm going to have to tell you this from the point of view of a teenager, because I experienced this at that time. This was my first association with yoga. I tell you how I came to go to India. Just after my high school graduation, I was very, very ill. And I had the last sacraments by the Roman Catholic priest. And my mother and my very good older friend were standing over me, and I saw them crying and crying and crying. And I had a wonderful experience at that point of becoming all light and being in peace. And I remember when the priest asked me whether there is something which I still should unload before I'm passing away. And I sort of felt, what is this man talking about? What is there to unload? I felt so happy. I saw these people cry, and I was quite all right. I was feeling very, very happy. And then I was in coma for a few days. And when I came again back, I made it. And this experience gave me a sort of a new view on life. And very strangely enough, I did escape teenagehood. I never was a normal teenager. From that point I started to seek, I started to read. My first book was the Bhagavad Gita. The next book was Der Weg zum Selbst in German language by Ramana Maharishi. And this book really fascinated me very, very much. I started to get very inward, started to practice these techniques. And one day somebody gave me a magazine, and there was an article by an Austrian writer. I think his name was Mr. Harrer. And he did a 5-6 page article on the Shivananda ashram and Swami Chidananda. I always was, as I still am, a heavy person from youth on. And when I started to read about yoga, everybody was skin bone. And when I read the books on Hatha yoga, I mean, how can I ever do Hatha yoga? So I was very disappointed that seemed to be something for me which I never could do. And there was a person bigger than I was. And there was my saint. And I started to read, and I started to read the life at the ashram. And I was very idealistic. It just sounded like paradise. So I spoke to my mother about it, and both of us wrote to Swami Chidananda. We wrote a letter whether it would be possible to come to the ashram to study, and we got an answer. He said, yes, you can come, acquire a tourist visa, and we take foreign students. And he gave all the details of the requirements of what we should bring and what is expected. And so we applied for a visa. Of course, we already had in mind we want to stay longer than 3 months. And we applied for a long-term visa, and we sold our house. My mother sold her business. We were going to go 6 months or longer to India. And we went to Rome, Italy, to spend Easter there, and then we were going to go on to India. And we got our passports in Rome, and the visa was refused. No visa. The mistake was we did not apply for tourist visa. See? So I do not know how I talked my mother into it, but my mother went back home to Germany, and she gave me enough money to go on to India. I said, I'm going to reach India, it doesn't matter how. So I had about enough money for the flight and the flight back and for a little stay. And I said, I'm going to go to Athens, Greece, apply for the visa there, and then I'm just writing tourist visa, and I shall get the visa. I came to Athens. There was no Indian embassy for Germans, no good relationships. But as I go on the plane, I had a gentleman next to me who started to talk to me. We became very friendly. He had a big Beethoven bust under his arm and started to talk to me about European culture. And I said, oh, I'm so in love with Indian culture, with Vedanta and everything. And he felt very much in love that such a young person could have so much devotion, wants to go to the Himalayas and study this. And then he found out that I was vegetarian, and then really he was so happy with me. So like a little puppy dog, wherever this man went, I went behind him. I felt very comfortable with him. And we spent a few days in Athens. And then he said, but now you must go on to India. He said, I will help you. I'll give you a letter with a recommendation to the Indian embassy in Karachi. And you go there and you will get your visa. I still did not know at that time with whom I traveled. So he took me to the next plane, said goodbye, said to pray for him. And then I opened the letter, and he said he was so happy because he felt just like I was his daughter. and he gave me this letter of recommendation. He was the Divan of Sikkim, like the Prime Minister of Sikkim. And I went to he got my visa, and I arrived at the ashram. The second greatest miracle was, and this starts now with Swami Chidananda in person. I think that Swami Chidananda took me into his monastery. It was 30 years ago, and at that time, Rishikesh was still a place for monasteries. And there I arrived, a young girl of 19, all alone. I arrived, my file was lost. They didn't know anything of my existence. And so I arrived in the evening, dead tired. And Gurudev just came from his cottage up to the platform to the satsang. And he talked to me in German. He said, in German. He welcomed me. Of course, I didn't understand a word. I was so nervous. I didn't understand anything. If he spoke German to me, if he spoke English to me, I was so nervous. But I felt right away at home. I felt welcome. And slowly, within a few days, I was absorbed into the ashram routine. You must understand, I came from a German middle-class, spoiled youngster family. India was quite a cultural shock to me. But I loved it there. I absolutely loved it there, and I adjusted very well. I did everything they told me to do. I was a very shy person. My first meetings with Swami Chidananda, he had a wonderful way to train a person, even if it was somebody insignificant as me, to really catch where I needed to be trained. See, in his office, where he gave darshan every day for about an hour and a half, he had a VIP chair opposite the desk. And for me, the biggest punishment was to sit in this VIP chair. And I think the first 2 weeks I had to sit in this VIP chair every day. And I was only praying that some VIPs would come to relieve me from it. Tell you the truth, after 3 months I would have loved to sit in the VIP chair. He had really a way he knew what you needed to develop. At this point, I just needed to develop on a very basic human level of adjusting, of making myself ready to even receive any of the spiritual teachings. And I had a few very interesting experience. One was, we had a darshan line one day, and I really at this point did not understand anything about the essence of the guru or the essence of the being. Everybody came up and fell down prostrated. The South Indians, the full prostrations. And I was terrified. I was next in line because it was strange to me. And I was just wondering, what am I going to do? I'm next. And as I came up, he just looked at me and he says, "You don't have to do this." And then I knew that he knew everything. And I don't have to, I can be completely natural and just work on myself. When I was with him in person, I was enjoyed his fatherly presence. I didn't feel particularly that I was the great saint. This is very interesting because when I went back to my room, being alone by myself, during all my efforts in the spiritual practices, it was a terrible struggle. Get up at 4, meditate from 4 to 6:30. You don't know how to meditate. But I sat these 2 hours faithfully, slowly discovering my mind and the workings of my mind. When I finally took some rest in the afternoon and came back, and I lay down and wanted to rest, it was at that time that I had some spiritual experiences. Whenever I was not expecting it, I got it. And I had two very intense spiritual experiences, which at that time made me realize that God in the presence was within, that with the help of a teacher, I can bring this out. And I spent 4 months there, never thinking about time or anything. After 3 months, Swami Chidananda had to make another appliance for my visa, and then D-Day came, and I never forget when I was called into his room. I don't know whether he remembers this, but he had to tell me I had to leave the country within 3 days. And
they gave only 1 month's extension.
1 month's extension, and I was very sad and very unhappy. I did not make a big demonstrations, but I was all alone there. And as I left, I was crying and crying and crying. And as I came home, and home was of course my mother's place, where else to go? As I came home, there was already a letter waiting for me. And he said, Swami Chidananda said, "Do not worry, I shall guide you. Follow your sadhana. You have been an ideal spiritual aspirant while you were here." And send me your spiritual diary every month. I shall guide you, I shall be with you. And thus my journey as a spiritual aspirant started. And one time, Swamiji asked me, "Has Swami Chidananda not initiated you? And is it what to know about initiation?" All this was so new to me. I just remember one incident. I was sitting in the famous VIP chair, and all of a sudden something flew through the air, and I caught it, and with it came a sound of a mantra, and it was my mala, and I still have the broken beads of the mala, and I related this to beloved Swamiji, and he said, "Let us make this formal now." So I have the double blessing, and I feel very, very, very blessed. And upon coming home, my journey as a spiritual aspirant started, and there'll be another life story to share this with you. No. Yoga teaching part. Really speaking, my yoga teaching part, I was a very good gymnast as a kid. And so it was easy for me to pick these things up. And
when did you migrate from Germany to Germany?
I journeyed in 1959, and then Swamiji came in 1960, and we had...
But Vishnu Swamiji came earlier.
He came earlier, yes. And at that time, very dear friend of mine,
Sylvia Heck.
Swami Chidananda, recommended that I meet her, Sylvia Heck. She was also young, 2 years older than I. We started to teach Hatha Yoga. We had a very small room in the big city of Montreal, and we both were working in offices. And on weekends, we always spent Saturday and Sunday in sadhana in this room, and during the week we were teaching Hatha Yoga in the evening. So this is how it started, the Hatha Yoga teaching career. And with experience, I did become better, and I did become a good Hatha Yoga teacher later on. So, but my main interest in yoga is the spiritual life. And nowadays we are having a very small retreat center in Maryland. The main work is having spiritual aspirants in for longer periods of time, that they can come and do their sadhana. We do sadhana together. Because I live in the country, and I still do my traveling as a Hatha Yoga teacher 3 times a week. But weekends and vacations we spend in spiritual retreats. And we're always extremely blessed when Swamiji comes to the United States that he is with us.
So if I don't go to the United States, they come to, huh?
Yes.
That's how they are here.
In the last years it has been like that. Yes.
But you were there for a centenary.
Yes. Yes.
You were at Rishikesh for the centenary last year. And this is the second time for the European program?
No.
Last time also you
Okay. No, this is my first time.
No, second.
Ost is second. Yeah.
So, Sitaji is one of the few teachers, American teachers in America today, who has had actual personal darshan, satsang and association with Gurudev. Many of the teachers now, they have not had this unique good fortune because they came into yoga later and therefore they did not have the great blessedness of being presence of Gurudev. And so there is how that our yoga is filled with his spiritual inspiration and how her teaching contains his spiritual principles of divine life. Yoga and Vedanta combine selflessness, service, devotion, worship, adoration, daily meditation, discipline, and unceasing aspiration for attaining self-realization, and for the attainment of which objective all the other work, the significance and the meaning of all the work is a part of the overall living and the overall sadhana for attaining the great goal, self-realization. Even the yoga work is part of the sadhana. By what has been freely received, giving to others, sharing with others, and thus trying thus to enrich their lives and thereby enriching one's own life. That is the type of life she is living, and she has got the able assistance of Marsha Davis, and that is the type of life she tries to share with others of our group. As she has just said, even though she is continuing to teach Hatha Yoga, her main emphasis has now shifted from Hatha Yoga to giving of spiritual retreat. They have got a core, a permanent core of a small group, very, very loving, very, very loyal, very, very devoted, and very, very earnest and sincere in the inner life, spiritual life. They are invariably present for all the retreat. It's open to many others, and they have had the good fortune of getting a number of beautiful retreat centers in that area. Claggett Center is one, and what of the
Christian Brothers.
Christian Brothers Center is another, and her own Yoga Sadhana Ashram also gives retreats. That's the way it is. And even though it's a bit out of schedule, we had these four names. Narayana, Mother Ram Narayananda, and John Biddle, and Sita. Yet I shall take the liberty of asking another very highly esteemed and honored friend of ours, Mr. Arnaud Desjardins, to say a few words about his meeting with Swamiji Maharaj, because he has come to India, stayed there and visited all the ashrams, and resulted a beautiful book, Ashrams in India, in French, it's thing available in English also. There is Swami Ramadas, Ramana Maharshi, Anandamayi Ma, and Gurudev. They all feature in that book. It's Arnaud Desjardins.
I was not expecting this invitation to say a few words, but I cannot but accept. I first stayed in Rishikesh in 1959 twice, and then in April 1963. So just a few months before Swami Chidananda left the body. The second stay was the most impressive, because it was obvious at that time that Swamiji was extremely sick, nearly paralyzed, and he has become of a tremendous beauty, unforgettable beauty. That was a great experience to see a human being, because Swamiji was both human and divine, a human being sharing our miseries of sickness, and at the same time so radiant. After a few seconds, we could only forget that he was sick. And I remember a few words he told me. At this time, nobody knew, at least I did not know, that one day I would write books, give lectures, and so on. I had only taken some pictures which appeared several times on the French television. And Swami Chidananda asked me suddenly, do you know what is the easiest thing in the world and the most difficult thing in the world? And Swami Chidananda told me, the easiest, as told for all of us, the easiest thing in the world is to give advice to others. And the most difficult thing is to follow the advice which the Guru has given. This I have never forgotten. So that's all I can say.
Desjardins has said much in the book. And he has held an important office in television France, but now he is totally given it up and dedicated himself to the life spiritual, and he has an ashram in the south of France, and he also gives retreats and guides spiritual aspirants and carries on his own inner ascent. He is blessed with the darshan of many leading luminaries of India, including Anandamayi and Paparanda. You had darshan of Ramana Maharshi also?
No, I went twice to Tiruvannamalai. It was 10 years after Ramana Maharshi left the body.
Yes. Ramana Maharshi left the body in April of 1950. April 50. But Papa Ramdas departed 10 days after Gurudev's departure. Gurudev, July 14th, 63. Papa Ramdas, 25th, July 25th, 63. Ma, of course. Yes. Yeah. No. Arvindo passed away 49. 98. He passed away, and after he passed away in December 49. And Maharishi passed away in April 50. Papa Ramdas and Gurudev same year, 1963. And Paramahams Baba Muktanand Paramahams Guru passed away 1 year before Gurudev passed away, 1962. Many of them passed away. Malayalam Swamiji of Yerpur also passed away 1962. Guru Purnima. Yeah. So, yes. 62, 61, 62, 63. And of course, beloved Sri Sri Ma, she passed on in August of 82 or July of 82?
August.
August 82, 27th of August 1982. we shall have now the remaining part of the program is that Swamiji will give us a message for this auspicious day, and I shall say a few concluding words before the puja we are offered to Gurudev and then the arati. Before Swamiji gives you the message, I wish to bring something Gurudev's word directly, just as Ramananda thought fit. We also wanted to give something in his own words, so we were casting about for some book. Then I think Mother Sita thought, why not give the last message of Swami Chidananda to the world. Because he had a system of writing down spiritual thoughts and spiritual instructions sometime during the day. In 24 hours, this Loka Sangraha, this sublime work of serving humanity, bringing the light of wisdom teachings, ancient wisdom teachings, the common spiritual heritage of all mankind. That thing he never left until the very last day of his life. In the heyday of his spiritual mission, after he had attained illumination in 1934, he made a system. He never exerted himself. Sometime, once, years later on, some social and political leader, when he was visiting the ashram and talking to me, said, Swamiji, I am amazed at the volume of literature you have been able to bring out. How did you manage to do it? You must have exerted hard. Really must have maybe spent the midnight oil, as they say. Gurudev laughed. He said, I have never made any special exertion. I have never tried to wait for inspiration and then immediately grab pen and paper and nothing. He said, I just made a system. Just as one wakes up and brushes one's teeth and has his bath and then breakfast and then goes to his work and has his lunch and then just as you have many activities during the day, I decided writing and putting across the ancient wisdom to modern man will be part of my daily work. So, when he started, he gave himself 4 periods of writing. And he was a very systematic person. He was very regular in everything that he did and very precise and systematic in whatever he did, because he was the product of British India. He was disciplined upon the correct British system. And later on, when he graduated from high school and entered a medical school in Tanjore, in South India, and got a medical degree, and left India to Malaysia. He studied in Tristram, which is our college. Yes. And then, when he qualified for medicine, he went over to what is known as Malaysia now. It used to be part of the British Empire. The British Empire in those days consisted of India, Burma, Ceylon, which is Sri Lanka today. India, Burma, Ceylon, and also a protectorate of the Federated State of Malaya and Singapore. So it was called FMS, Malaya and Singapore, the Federated States. Now Malaysia is a separate country and Singapore is a separate country, therefore Malaya has become Malaysia. And so to make his fortune, he went over there as a young man. And then for about 10 years he served under 2 British doctors. So all that became part of his system, And so when he went also, he was very regular in sadhana. So he told him, I have never exerted myself, I have not made any special effort. I made it part of my daily routine, morning, midday, afternoon, evening. I sat down. There was a particular time, when that time came, I left everything and sat down and wrote. And because his teachings did not come from the intellect of the brain, when he sat, it just flowed. He was a very fast writer, beautiful handwriting. And all his manuscripts are handwritten. Okay? And amazing for me, they are blank pages, not ruled pages. So it was just plain paper, you see. And 4 times a day he wrote. But he had an amazing brain. Just like the pigeonholes in mail sorter's office in the post office. So he could write upon one subject, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, finish off. And as soon as he finished and closed the book, that thing was finished. His thoughts never lingered in that subject. He could switch on 100% to something else. And I have known times when at one time, simultaneously, he was working on 4 books of 4 totally different subjects, unconnected subjects. Advice to women, maybe Hatha Yoga, and then health and long life, or health and happiness, and some other outlandish subject quite unconnected with the other 3. And he used to say, I have got watertight compartments in that. When I focus upon one, 100% focus. When that is off, then it's finished. My mind gets on to another subject, there also 100%. And so he said, I never exerted myself. Time came, I wrote. And so many drops of water make the mighty ocean. That's how the ocean of the Shivananda literature came into being. Later on, he reduced. At that time, he was free. He had no ashram, no society, no program, and he had only to meditate and enjoy the Ganges and Himalayas and then write. But later on, when he became involved in the organization and all that, which was not part of his plan, he reduced his writing to thrice a day. Then later on, when I reached his feet, it was 3 times a day. Later on, he made it twice. And towards the end, he was writing once in 24 hours. And this was a manuscript which was found. To the last days, he was not able to write. So, but when the time came, he must share and give. Therefore, he would call someone and dictate, write down. So, the book which commenced with his handwriting, the last few days, it was someone else's handwriting. And it is interesting, the sentence at which the manuscript stood when he passed on was, happiness comes when the individual merges in God. That was that. And this manuscript was printed and published posthumously after his passing. Therefore, it is the last work of Gurudev, Swami Chidananda. Briefly, I will read a few paragraphs from the 10th chapter, page 60. Just as a drug makes a man enter into deep sleep, so also comforts and luxurious living drug the divinity in man and make him sink into deep slumber of ignorance. Retire into solitude, negate all that is cognized, discard them one by one, transcend them, you will realize yourself. This process one must do every day, morning and evening. Morning and evening. Retire into the closet and close the door behind me. Bible. Mere theoretical knowledge of music does not make you a musician. So also, mere theoretical knowledge itself does not make you a realized soul. The Atman or the Self is there at all times. Just as things in a room which are invisible in the darkness become visible the moment light is brought into the room, similarly the Self remains hidden due to the darkness of ignorance and becomes visible when the light of wisdom is brought forth. Self-realization is not attained by intellectual activity, but attained by the cessation of all mental modifications. If you try to attain self-realization by the sheer effort of the intellect, it will be just like trying to stamp with one's foot on the shadow cast by one's own head. Objects are only reflections in the eternal supreme consciousness. With a perfectly still mind, you can become aware of the interval between two perceptions. You can get a glimpse of pure consciousness. Prevent your mind from going outward. Become still and watch your mind. You will succeed ultimately in attaining God consciousness. That state which, like a thread in a flower garland, passes through the three states of waking, dream and deep sleep, is the real self. Because the thread is present inside all the flowers that go to make a garland. Just as the rays of the sun are invisible but are capable of illuminating objects, even so, consciousness, though invisible, illumines everything. The transcendental blissful state which you experience during meditation is due to the reflection of self through Anandamaya Kosha. Bedrock of religion is dharma or righteousness. The bedrock of wisdom is right discrimination. The bedrock of devotion is faith. The bedrock of yoga is yama or self-control. Self-forgetfulness or forgetfulness of one's own pure self is verily real suicide. The essence of Vedanta is self-realization. The essence of yoga is union with God. The essence of bhakti is communion with the personal God. Just as the mirror remains unaffected by the different objects reflected in it, so also the absolute consciousness remains unaffected in spite of the multifarious creation. World is God, limited by minds. Live to die is the motto of worldly people. Die to live is the motto of an aspirant. Because whether they have the motto or not, afterwards, one day, life ends in death. Just as rays have come from the sun, just as sparks emanate from fire, waves from the ocean, the jivas or the individual souls have come from Parabrahman or the ocean of absolute consciousness. Pride is a sin. Identification in the body is a sin. Selfishness is a sin. Ignorance is the greatest of all sins. Father of all sins. Forgetfulness of God is death. Wisdom of the self is the ripe fruit of the beautiful flower of virtue. The flower of virtue is the fruit of ripe fruit of God realization. God reveals himself in different ways to different devotees according to the stage of development and aspiration. When the beast in man perishes, God in man manifests himself. The universal law never favors anyone. It deals with every person as one deserves. Eternal joy resides within the fortress of unselfishness. Justice, humility, compassion are the fundamental virtues of the saint. It is better to suffer loneliness than to be in evil company, bad company. Prayer is the mystic bridge which bridges the gap between man and God. No one can go through life without making mistakes. Therefore, do not brood over mistakes. Repent for it, then forget it. What you have learned, remember. This is experience gain. Charity is love. Now, I have the great joy. No, I will get even with Swami. I have the great joy of asking my twin brother, Swami Satchidananda, bless us all with this auspicious and worthy message for this wonderful occasion. Swami Satchidananda.
Well, we are really very fortunate sage who walked among us, who lived with us as a simple, down-to-earth person, but at the same time in a very high state of consciousness. I had the privilege of having stayed with many great masters of that time. I spent some time at Aurobindo Ashram, stayed with Ramana Maharshi, spent some time with Baba Ramdas. I was even initiated into Brahmacharya at the Ramakrishna Mission, and I lived there also. I stayed with another great giant of Vedanta, Swami Rajeswarananda. And ultimately, the Providence gently led me to the feet of Gurudevananda. Having lived with all those great masters, I can very well say that in Gurudev Shivanandaji we have a total blend of all these great masters. He aptly calls his approach integral yoga. He never denied or negated any approach. And he never made the spiritual practice into a big, dynamic, complicated techniques. His approach was always very simple. As you have just heard that he was an able doctor in Malaya at the time. He was very well aware of the way how to administer medicines, precisely in pill forms. And he applied the same technique in administering spiritual medicine in beautiful pill forms. His pills are very well known, though not registered. Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Then later on he added a few more beautiful things. Adapt, adjust, accommodate. And the most difficult pill was this: bare insult, bare injury. And he calls that as the highest sadhana. You can stand comfortably for half an hour on your head, do all the pumping, breathing exercises, recite the Bhagavad Gita from the last sloka to the first sloka backward. Yes, that's all easy. But the most difficult part is to bear insult, bear injury. He had always a way of injecting powerful tonics into the life of people. And as I said, it's always in very simple words. Very simple. Even though sometimes his writings might even contradict what he says or does sometimes. He said, Yogi, you should not drink coffee. The first thing I heard from him when I went to see him is, hey, South Indian Swami, South Indian Satchidananda has come. Give me a cup of coffee. Swami, coffee? Ajay, listen, man. You take coffee, is it not? Come on. Actually, when I, having seen all these Swamis, and many others, even not that well known, great Siddhas, who can just manifest things out of thin air. Let me give you an example. The latest Swami in South India, I would just point out a fruit in a mango tree and say, Swamiji, I would like to get that fruit. He'll say, come on, stretch your arms, palms. When I do that, that fruit can come and fall in my hands. That kind of great siddhas, we have seen that. But I don't know how they ended their life. But here, having seen all these, I thought I'm going to see a great big, as Sita was saying, I was reminded of that. Big Swami always sitting meditation in a high throne-like thing, and all the disciples sitting far away. All these things. And here, when I went there and took a bath and was waiting to go in, and ultimately somebody said, okay, now Swami is here, sitting in the veranda, you can go and see him. I went there, Haji, come. They are coming from South India, Madrasi. You must be hungry. Get some idli, dosa, coffee. That was my first initiation. Okay, I had to obey. At least if I can't follow whatever he says, I should swallow whatever he gives. So, having had the coffee, then he, oh, you have come a long way, eh? When did you come? This morning. Who told you that I am here? Everybody talks about Swami in Rishikesh. Oh, so you came to see me. Now what do you think of me? What do you think? Swamiji, I have to be honest. Yes. I'm a little disappointed. What? You're disappointed with me? Yes, Swami. Why? I thought Himalayan Swami will be always sitting in a high throne and meditating. Oh, you come, my devotee. The language itself is a little different. Here you are giving me coffee and biscuit. Oh, I see. Only when I do that, you will think that I'm a big Swami. All right then. He immediately started sitting like that. I knew that is the Swami we need for this morning. He never complicated. Everything is very simple. And the song of little is very well known. Eat a little, drink a little, talk a little, do asana a little, pranayam. Don't be very serious and stingy about all these things. Take it easy. That is the reason reason why he never moved out of India, except only once for a few days into Sri Lanka in the year 1950. He never went out of India. But here, every nook and corner of the world knows Swami Chidananda. Why? Because his teachings were very simple. And this evening, as I was walking in, I heard Narayan saying, Swami Shivananda is not Shivananda, he is Givananda. His books were everywhere, in every library. I know when I was in Ceylon, now known as Sri Lanka, there are piles and piles of books Swamiji sent to the Prime Minister, who is a Sinhalese Prime Minister, who never even read that. But his assistants, personal assistants, they all read that book. So when I even went once and asked him, Swami, many of these people don't even seem to read those books. Why are you sending it unnecessarily, spending time, wasting money and postage? Somebody will read it.
He used to send it to Stalin, Truman, and all that.
Everybody. And he will never let us go somewhere. Says, Swamiji, I'm going to Dehradun. Ajit, come on. What do you have in your hand? Nothing. No, have your bag. Some pamphlets. I say, Dehradun, everybody knows Swamiji. They come and, doesn't matter, you take it. I'm going to Delhi. All right, go put a few pamphlets in every compartment before you get into the train. And I have seen sometimes people read his pamphlet after eating that, what do you call that? Sundal. You know, the prasad. Sometimes even in the restaurants, you know, the mixer, savory mixer, that's wrapped in his pamphlets. And many people have, after eating that, they would read. He knows the way, how to spread the message. He had a nice, beautiful file. The address of all the stingy fellows in my sir's address. And every time a new book published, they will get the first book. Why? They never send anything back to the ashram. I said, what? Let me see when their mind will change. I have never seen a person like that. He is very, very down to earth. I still remember vividly. Is he a saint or an ordinary person or a baby, playmate or a little? Hey, it's impossible to fathom him. One day somebody gave him a nice shawl and he had it. Then the following day, a devotee was coming to the satsang and he was shivering. Oh, gee, you must be cold. Come on, wear this. He took it and gave it. That's fine. Any saint could do that. Unfortunately, the gentleman, the person who gave the shawl, went to Delhi and he was coming back after 3 days. By the time he gave the shawl to somebody else. So, I think he's coming back. He gave me the shawl. If he sees the shawl at somebody's shoulder, he will feel terribly bad. He will think that I haven't used it. I can't ask him, can you get it from him for a day? You go and speak to him and borrow it from him until he goes away. How considerate he could be. And these are all very simple things. But if you really go deep into that, how much of a humane nature, how much of courtesy. He didn't want to hurt anybody's feeling. And to him this is yoga. Yoga is to live without hurting anybody's feeling. And see the good in everybody. Another time, a simple fellow, the son of a well-known musician, he came and he introduced himself. I am son of so and so, a well-known musician, the pipe player. Oh, so you are the son of so and so. You must be playing very nicely then. A little so. Okay, come on. This evening satsang you should play. And we started playing the pipe. We were all going away. Everybody was making face. But we watched Swamiji's face. Wonderful. See, that's what. When you sow a seed, if you sow a mango seed, what else will you get? Mango fruit. Huh? You are the seed of that man. You have that trait. He was simply praising him, lifting him up so high. We couldn't bear the music. Then afterwards he gave him a title also. Sangeeta Jyoti or something like that. And then he gave him all books and some tonics, fruits, everything. So next year when you come, you must play still more better. You know, it exactly happened. 1 year after he came as an expert musician and played. He knows how to live. In fact, every time when I talk about Swamiji, I don't even have to go and look for any other example. I am the example myself. In my own life, I've seen this. If I had done a good job, they would have kept me in the ashram. I lived in the ashram for a little while. When Satchidananda Mataji from Sri Lanka came and asked for a Swami to go with her, to help her in organizing some centers, there was just one excuse because I know Tamil, their language. So immediately they picked, the Swami will go with you. If I was really important, how could they send me that easily? It's very true. I was not in any administrative capacity or doing anything work there. All I know is I learned a little asana pranayama, so I used to teach asana class. And then they made me a Raja Yoga professor. Because of that I had to study a little Patanjali. Yoga Vedanta Forest Academy. So I have been made the professor of Raja Yoga and Hatha Yoga. So it would be shame on me if I know nothing about Patanjali. So it made me study Patanjali Yoga Sutra. That's all I did in the ashram. And came on. But now they say, oh, I'm doing great this and that and that. I even told Swami, you are picking the wrong person to send to Ceylon. Could you please find somebody else? Why? They are asking you. I don't know any administrative capacity or organizational capacity. If you send me, and if I go as your representative, it will be a bad name to you. Go. today he is taking care.
He was the uncrowned king of Sri Lanka at one time.
Oh yes, every time I come back, the Ceylon king has come. For some time I was the Bombay king, then I became Ceylon. Thank God Swamiji is not here, otherwise he would have made the president of America.
Sending you to Ceylon was hop, skip and jump.
Yes.
Jump. Ceylon, France, USA. If you had not gone to Ceylon, you wouldn't have. He knew something.
There is a saying in Tamil, Vallavanukku pullum ayudam. That means if a person is a capable warrior, he doesn't need even a good sword or anything to fight. He will just take a blade of grass and win the war. He doesn't, because he is a capable person. But an incapable person, even if he has a nice sword, he can't do anything. So, Swamiji has really proved that he is that Vallavan. He picked up a blade and won the war, I should say. So, I am the example to show how great he is. If he has picked up anybody else, they already had some qualifications. It's not really great for him. He picked up the one who really never had any qualification. Swami had graduation or MA, BA and this and that. I even failed matriculate, please remember that. I haven't even passed my secondary school. So naturally, it was easy for him to pick a blade. So today, he is, though not in our midst physically, he is in our midst in a different level, spreading himself all over the world, reaching every heart and elevating them to great heights. So we are really fortunate to sit here today on this wonderful holy day, 101 anniversary day. To think of him, remember him, and remember his teachings. My sincere wish and prayer today is, let us be worthy for his continued blessings, so that we can serve the way he wants.
Thank you, Swamiji. We are very, very fortunate and blessed to have this wonderful opportunity of your presence, as well as your beautiful and spontaneous sharing of Shivananda in your life, and now Shivananda in and through your life and actions in the whole world. And we are especially grateful for your very, very nice, touching, human anecdotes which give an insight into his very saintly yet very, very simple, and one of the qualities that always used to inspire me when I was in spiritual was his transparent simplicity and transparent an innocence which one could not attribute to anything except a child. His child was great in years, he was a sage of wisdom, but at the same time he was like a child in his the absolute simplicity and innocence and egolessness. Child has no ego. That's why that is the beauty of its innocence and simplicity. That is what we found in him. to live in parents. This is indeed a great privilege. It's a great privilege. It's a wonderful blessedness and privilege to get this opportunity to express our love and gratefulness to a wonderful being, great good man of God, a lover of all mankind, a person whose heart was filled with the urge to do the utmost best that he could to make people awake to the greater, higher, sublime spiritual purpose of life, so that they do not lose this golden opportunity and afterwards regret and lament. He wanted everyone to go beyond sorrow and attain supreme happiness. And it was a living example of what has been described in our scriptures as the nature of a perfected being who has attained whatever has to be attained. Therefore, there is nothing more for him to do, and who has no more any desires because all his desires have been fulfilled, and therefore he is what is known as aptakama krita kritya, and such a great super person the great scriptures describe as living only to bring good to others, having but one intention, because there is no more any intention for them personally in relation to themselves. They have nothing to attain, they have nothing to get, they have no want, no desire, no wish, but only one intention fills them from head to toe, that is, how can we work for the welfare of all. So the classical description of such a being is sarvabhuta hite rata. They are intent upon the welfare of all creatures towards oneself. Who proved that such a thing is a possibility, that scriptural description and declaration is a fact, a truth. He had no thought of himself. Day and night he had but one thought. How can I benefit others? How can I, with every breath, with all my energy, all my time, see, how can I act so that it may be conducive to the welfare of others? That was Gurudev. And each and every one of us have been recipients of that great benevolence and that great gift of the inner life. And therefore, it is our good fortune and blessedness that we have this occasion of trying in a little measure to express our love and gratefulness to someone who has brought into our lives a gift which is priceless, and therefore we can never repay in any other way except through our life, through our own life. It is a debt that we can repay only by trying to be worthy, as Swamiji said. He concluded upon the right note, trying to be worthy all the great gifts he has showered upon us. And I was touched by a thought expressed by Mr. Arnaud Desjardins, because he's always there in me. He said in spite of his sickness, he was also a human being, and therefore he suffered physically as any ordinary human being. But at the same time, even in that state, he was just radiant. He said radiant. That is precisely my experience of Guru. I can never think of him any other way than a radiant being. Radiant being. I always am fond of saying, trying to give my experience. See, his continued face the east. The sunrise was over the mountains, across the hills. And was already sunrise by the time he got ready to come out of his kutir and meet people. And there was always an eager crowd gathered together in various places, some of them in front of his kutir, some of them on the roof of a nearby building, just to catch a glimpse as they were coming out of his kutir every morning. And there were visitors, there were ashramites, there were people of the neighborhood. They knew that Swamiji would be coming to the office, and so they were all waiting, looking at his kutir. Kutir was in depth. You see, it is something you can never believe. He lived in an underground cellular room which had no cross ventilation, where the direct rays of sun never penetrated, and you have to descend below the road level. The road was above, and you have to descend a few steps and get into that cell, and it overlooked the Ganga. He loved the Ganges, it was on the water's edge. And living in that room brought about a great revolution in the inner thought world of mankind, changed the hearts of millions. And when time came for him to come, the first sign was one of his attendants will open the door from inside, unbolt the door and open the door. He was in a room, he stepped into the veranda, and it was an L-shaped veranda. The longer arm of the L was along the bank of the Ganga, and then took a turn to the left, and the shorter arm of the L, and at that end was the door. And so when it was unbolted, immediately the thrill passed to all the people. No more, Swami is coming. So the attendant unbolted the door and step out, and then Swami stepped out. The moment he stepped out, the sun was already risen, it was shining. It was as though a second sun had arisen. There was a second sunrise. That was the effect of us. There was something in him which was timeless. There was something, his face never registered his age. It always radiated. His eyes always sparkled. His face always radiated. And in his presence, no one could be depressed or dejected or mofa. Even if people came heavy laden with sorrow and all that, the moment they came and sat in his presence, they immediately felt a lightening of everything. They were immediately at peace. So there was, therefore, divinity shone through his transparent, pure personality. There was holiness, see, and purity. So there was nothing to obstruct the divinity from flowing through him. That was how his very presence purified and uplifted us. And we are therefore honored, we are therefore blessed that he gives us this occasion to express our adoration and eternal gratefulness of heart for all that has been to us and done to us and is still doing to us. And it is my absolute conviction that such beings who have attained oneness with cosmic being, for them there is no going and no coming. What has gone is only his outer material body. It is only his outer physical instrument with which he was working. Having attained oneness with the cosmic being, the presence or absence of the physical vehicle does not mean anything to them. It does not make any difference. And you can see that Gurudev is living and working through Swami Satchidananda. He lives through Narayana, he lives through Mother Ram Narayana, she lives through Sita Prankar, he lives through Ram and Moon, he lives through each and every one of you who are trying to whom in the direction he has pointed out, and who are trying sincerely to make each one of yourself a personification and embodiment of his divine life, master business. Where there is selflessness and service, spirit of service, there Chidananda is still living, and not only living, living and acting. Okay? So this will continue because the power of his word is the power of his love for all beings. jnana is self-realization, power of God realization. The power of love is the entire life of sacrifice, austerity, penance, deep meditation and realization. That is why any book you open, the words speak to you, penetrate your heart the moment you read them. He was not a discursive writer. He was not an academic philosopher. He spoke to souls. He spoke directly to the inner being within you, not even to you as a human individual. More than that, he did address you as a human individual upon the normal, the mental and ethical level. But his central message was directed to you as a spark of divinity, timeless, eternal, without birth and death. And it's a great blessedness to us that his auspicious birthday has fallen upon that day of the week set apart specially for honoring all the Gurus. Today is Thursday and the day of adoring the Guru. Therefore, let us bring into our mind all the long line of illumined sages and seers from ancient prehistoric Vedic times, down millennia, down the corridor of centuries, generation after generation. They have kept this flame of living spirituality alive, vital to this unbroken line of successive masters and disciples. So that this fourth quarter of this 20th century is grateful to that great tradition which has kept the flame of spirituality burning bright and still ablaze, so that we are able to benefit out of it. And therefore, while we pay our obeisance and homage and gratitude to this modern representative of the ancient unbroken line of spiritual masters, we also remember all the ancient spiritual masters of all parts of the world, of all faiths and traditions, who have been the benefactors of humanity from dawn of creation, Narada, Parashara, Yajnavalkya, Vedavyasa, Vasishta, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbacharya, Vallabhacharya, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, and all the mystics of the various Judaic traditions, of the Christian tradition, of the Islamic tradition, of the Zoroastrian tradition. So this is also a moment when we remember with great gratitude and much reverence and love all the great mystics and spiritual masters that have enriched the total global spiritual heritage of man on earth. Man on earth is fortunate because of all these great ones who have illumined the centuries and generations by their presence and by their loftily lived ideal lives and by their wonderful, inspiring and transforming wisdom teachings. We are grateful to them all. We are especially grateful to this great one, this one filled with universal love and compassion, who has given a new direction to our lives, brought a new light, and made our lives meaningful, significant, filled with a sense of purpose, not empty or aimless, but filled with a sense of purpose, so that we live purposefully. Lord has blessed the 19th and the 20th century with a gift of many such spiritual giants, the great masters, 19th and the 20th century, Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, and so many others. Mystical saint wore the stigmata for 40 years, Padre Pio, San Giovanni del Tango in Italy, and Saint Teresa of Monastery in Bavaria. She was also a wonderful hidden gem of spirituality in our own times. We remember all of them with gratitude. And in this century, in our own times, Gurudev saw even the first Sputnik go out into orbit, in space. So he was a link between the ancient and the modern, the eastern and the western. But above all, as one admirer of his, a much titled, much medaled, the Major General of the Indian Army, said, Swami Chidananda had a sage of practical wisdom. He gave wisdom that you could put into practice. He wanted us to do as much as that.
His son is the army.
Yes. Major General Sharma is he has no commander-in-chief of the Now, all things have come to an end. We are in a borrowed place, and therefore we also thank our Spanish brethren of the Spanish Yoga Federation for having given us permission to use their hall for this occasion. We now close with a concluding prayer, after which we have worship. And some little limited quantity of some spiritual literature is here, and first come, first serve, to keep it, they can share. As a family they can take one, as a group they take one. And if you want, you can reprint it, process of free distribution. Reprint. So, 101st birth anniversary of our celebrated worshipful Holy Master Gurudev Swami Chidananda has given us a gift of this beautiful fellowship today. Spend some time in the company of devotees of the Lord, sincere spiritual aspirants and seekers is not an ordinary thing. It's a real gift of God because it is sanctified. It's sanctified, it's purified, it elevates us, it adds, augments our spiritual samskaras and vasanas. And therefore, even though he is not an express, he has given us this great wonderful gift of 2 hours spiritual fellowship today. We are grateful for this also. We conclude with the Mahamantra Kirtan, prayers for the peace of the whole world and for the welfare and happiness of entire mankind. We included special prayers also for many who are in special need of prayers, including the war-torn land of Lebanon, which needs our prayer for its restoration of peace and healing of the wounds of war and violence and hostility. May we pray on behalf of all those who may be in need of collective prayers. Thank all those who have worked with this beautiful altar inside for this occasion. Everyone who worked to make this, especially for them, all this IC Gurudev there, IC Gurudev there, IC Gurudev there, IC Gurudev there, directly this meditating IC. So we thank you for your presence, your participation, fellowship that you are giving to us, your presence, and thank all those who have exerted great sincerely. And with the labor of love, has given them joy, I know it. Wish them all happiness, wish them all spiritual blessing, and fulfillment of their aspiration. Hari विष्णुनन्ते देवस्सदा शिवः मूर्तित्रय स्वरूपाय दत्तात्रेयाय नमोस्तुते जगदुत्पत्तिकर्त्रे च स्थितिसंहारे हेतवे भवपाशविनाशाय दत्तात्रेयाय नमोस्तुते जराजन्मविनाशाय देहशुद्धिकराय च दयामूर्ते दत्तात्रेयाय नमोस्तुते गुरुवे सर्वलोकानां ऋषये भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्ते नमः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति विभागिने व्योमोत्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्ते नमः ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां हयग्रीवमुपास्महे व्यासं वसिष्ठत्वारं शक्ते पौत्रमरिमशं पराशरात्मानं वन्दे शुकतातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मणे वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः अचतुर्वदनो ब्रह्मा विवाहर्परो हरिः अभालोचन शंकर भगवान् बादरायणः शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतो वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः नमः शिवानन्दाय गुरुवे सच्चिदानन्दमूर्ते निष्प्रपञ्चाय शान्ताय निरालम्बाय तेजसे त्वं विष्णुर्विरिञ्चिस्त्वं चन्द्रदेवो महेश्वरः त्वं चैव शक्तिरूपासि निर्गुणस्त्वं सनातनः आनन्दमानन्दकरं प्रसन्नं ज्ञानस्वरूपं निजबोधयुक्तं योगीन्द्रमिढ्यं भवरोगवैद्यं श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि वन्दे ॐ श्री सद्गुरुपरमात्मने नमः मङ्गलं गुरुदेवाय महनीयगुणात्मने सर्वलोकशरण्याय साधुरूपाय मङ्गलं सर्वलोकशरण्याय साधुरूपाय मङ्गलम् ॐ नमो भगवते शिवानन्दाय ॐ नमो भगवते शिवानन्दाय ॐ नमो भगवते शिवानन्दाय गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्तिर्पूजामूलं गुरोर्पदं मंत्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यं मोक्षमूलं गुरोर्कृपा नाथ श्री जगन्नाथ मद्गुरु श्री जगद्गुरु नाथ श्री जगन्नाथ मद्गुरु श्री जगद्गुरु मम आत्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः यस्य देवे परा भक्ति यथा देवे तथा गुरु यस्य देवे परा भक्ति यथा देवे तथा गुरु तस्य ते कथिता हर्ता प्रकाशन्ते महात्मनः तस्य ते कथिता हर्ता प्रकाशन्ते महात्मनः अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया तस्मै अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरि ओम् हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय
नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय
नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय
नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय
नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय
नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय
दत्तात्रेय पाहि मां दत्तगुरु रक्ष मां
दत्तात्रेय पाहि मां दत्तगुरु रक्ष मां
ओम शक्ति ओम ब्रह्म शक्ति विष्णु शक्ति Shiva Shakti Om.
Om Shakti Om Shakti Om Shakti Om. Brahma Shakti Vishnu Shakti Shiva Shakti Om.
Gurudeva Sadgurudeva Sadgurudeva Pahimam Shivananda 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 Lakshma.
Sadgurudeva 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 Pahimam Shivananda 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 Lakshma.
Sadgurudeva 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 Namaha.
Sadgurudeva 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 Namaha.
Shivananda 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 Sharanamo.
Shivananda 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 Sharanamo.
Om 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 Avichar Om 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 Bhaja Omkar.
Om 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 Avichar. Om 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 Bhaja Omkar.
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare.
Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize.
Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize.
Be good to good, be kind, be compassionate.
Be good to good, be kind, be compassionate.
Practice ahimsa, satyam and brahmacharya.
Practice ahimsa, satyam and brahmacharya.
This is the foundation of yoga and Vedanta.
This is the foundation of yoga and Vedanta.
Practice non-injury, truth and chastity.
Practice non-injury, truth and chastity.
This is the essence of religion and spirituality.
This is the essence of religion and spirituality.
Who am I? Know thyself and be free.
Inquire who I know thyself and be free.
Who am I? Know thyself and be free.
Inquire who I know thyself and be free.
You are not this body, not this mind, immortal self you are.
You are not this body, not this mind, immortal self you
You are
are.
not this body, not this mind, immortal Atman.
You are not this body, not this mind, immortal Atman.
Radiant Atman.
Radiant Atman.
Realize this and be free.
Realize this and be free.
So says
So says Gurudev.
the divine life.
Live the divine life.
Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize.
Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize.
Be good, do good, be kind, be compassionate.
Be good to good, be kind, be compassionate.
This is your duty, foremost duty, therefore do it now.
This is your duty, foremost duty, therefore do it now.
D-I-N, do it now.
D-I-N, D-I-n, do it now.
Do not postpone.
Do not postpone.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Shivananda, Shivananda, Jai Ho. Shivananda, 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 Jai Ho.
Shivananda, 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 Jai Ho. Shivananda, 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 Jai Ho.
Shivananda, Shivananda, Gurudev, Jai Ho.
Shivananda, Shivananda, Shivadev, Jai Ho.
Gurudev, Shivananda, Jai Ho.
Gurudev, Shivananda, Jai Ho.
Jai Ho means hallelujah. It means victory, rejoice, hail, hallelujah. That's all. Hari Om. Hari Om. सर्वेषां स्वस्ति भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां फलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय ज्योतिर्मामृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. 「 mercy and love, salvations and frustrations and relief. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art the Indra of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equilibrium, balanced mind, faith, devotion and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptations and control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, greed, hatred, anger, jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtue. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing Thy glories. Let Thy name be above upon our lips. Let us abide in Thee forever. Let us abide in Thee forever. Lord, make me an instrument of Thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is injury, let me bring pardon. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. O Divine Master, I do not seek so much to be understood by others, but to understand others. I do not seek so much to be consoled, but to console others. I do not seek so much to be loved, but rather to love others. For it is in giving that one receives. It is in consoling others that one receives consolation, and it is in pardoning others that one is pardoned, and it is in dying to the little self that one attains the everlasting life. Amen.
And one more.
That is after Yes, the Lord. Is it? Yes, the Lord is after prayer. The last one. No? All right. Wrong or something wrong.
La caméra, comme ça tu filmes mieux. Parce qu'il y a trop de monde. Ça connaît mon tas.
I request all to release these. I think that is better. You get to see, yes.
Ah voilà, enfin.
Even during Aarti,
On peut enrouler la
Om Shri Shivanaya Namaha, Om Gangadevasanastivaaya Namaha, Om Kesavaya Namaha, Om Narayana Namaha, Om Madhavaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Vishnuvaya Namaha, Om Madhuvaya Namaha, Om Trivikrumaya Namaha, Om Vamanaya Namaha, Om Sriraya Namaha, Rishikeshaya Namaha, Om Padmanabhaya Namaha, Om Damodaraya Namaha, Om Sankarshanaya Namaha, Om Vasudevaya Namaha, Buddhinaya Namaha, Om Anurudhaya Namaha, Om Purushottamaya Namaha, Om Madhushraya Namaha, Narsimhaya Namaha, Om Achyutaya Namaha, Om Janardanaya Namaha, Om Upendraya Namaha, Om Hare Namaha, Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha, Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya, Om Shri Shivanandaya Namaha, Om Shri Shivanandaya Namaha, Om Shri Satguru Paramatmane Namaha. We have saved some flowers, and at the end of the Aarti, anyone who wishes to come up to the altar can offer the flowers after the Aarti is over. Om Brahmarpanam Brahmahadihi Brahmato Brahmanadam Brahmavedam Brahmadanasamahatma Hari Om Tatsat Brahmarpanamastu Swaha 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 Samaya Swaha Brahmane Swaha Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu Satchidananda Bhagavan Ki Jai Shivananda Maharaj Ki Annapurna Mata Ki Paramatmane Continue from one end only, otherwise it will reduce the physical. Use it. Then it will learn. Yeah. Namo Shivananda Gurave Satchidananda Murthe Nityanandaya Shantaya Ramaya Tejase Donde Vishnu Deo Maheshwara Donde Vishnurupa Shinurastum Sanatana Tvameva Mata Srida Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Sasaka Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dranam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Shivanandaya Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Shivanandaya Natutto Suryo Bhati Natundradarikam Nema Vidyo Bhanti Kato Yamagni Tameva Bhantana Bhati Sarvam Tasya Vasa Sarvamitam Vibhati Mangalam Gurudevaya Mahani Munatmane Sarvalokatranyaya Sadhupaya Mangalam Hari Om Tat Sat Om Shri Sattu Paramatmane Give it to Swami first. Give it to Swami. Swasti Prajabhya Paripalentam Nayenam Mahim Mahesha O Brahmane Vishwavaskrityam Lokasamasa Sukino Bhavantu Kali Ashudvarjanyam Prativishasyajarini Deshoham Shogareto Ramana Santu Nirbhaya Lokoham Shogareto Sajana Santu Nirbhaya Ashubhanirajashtirano Rishivasantatim Sritimatreni Yatvam Sambrahmatan Mangalam Param Ati Kalyanarupatvat Nitya Kalyana Samshrayat Smatrinamaranatvat Brahmatan Mangalam Vidhu Omkarastha Sahasrastadvavedo Brahmana Pura Kantam Dhitva Nidhyato Tasmat Mangalikavo Om Asavo 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 Mangalam Asvat Gurunam Mangalam Mestu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, Asato Ma Satgamaya, Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevamsate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Satchidananda Bhagavan ki jai, Sadguru Shivananda Maharaj ki jai. I'm half inclined to sing. He's a jolly good fellow. Instead of that, sing, rejoice in the Lord
always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice, rejoice, and again I say rejoice. Always, and again I say rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord always.
Always, always, always. Siempre, siempre. What do you say always in French? Toujours. Toujours. Whole day, whole day. And in Deutsch?
Immer.
Whatever it is. Hari Om. You see, if you burned up too much energy, you have to replenish it. So next item is what is your system for distribution? Take it near the door. Take it point. That is
Open the door.
best.
If anybody is there, they can also come in.
Well, the last little door, all the tiny weenies can come in first fall. The other whole family can come there. Some volunteers, please. Swami. Yes. You know Swami? Swami will give some special prasad for some teeny weenies. Potential demand. But no, I hold it. Come on. This is my darling Grace.
We have great honors always.
And
That is just a green boy.
Matthew, oh, he's
You
become
blue boy. Now you are a red boy.
Come.
Krishna, go.
Okay, somebody can catch him. Good.
And then Krishna, yeah. And Krishna, Yeah. He's like Jack and Beanstalk. And who is the next one? Harold, here,
Okay, fine.
now all the older children come and take from Swami. Swami was mistaken for God at one time. Because in the church paintings, you see the ceiling, God is not like this. So some youngster asked, Mommy, and many years back,
James Bond, he came when I was addressing a small school children, and at the end of my talk, I went away, and the class teacher asked the children to write about what they heard from me. Almost everybody said, Swami said this, Swami said that.
SWAMPY. Come. All those who feel themselves,
All those who are children, all the grown-ups can
Monsieur Anna, Swami Gurudevananda. She's a granddaughter of Gurudev. Yes.
Oh, you're okay.
We've got the Milky Way. Milky Way. No, a little bit away from Yes? They are not separate. I want to have a dress.
Alors moi j'ai pas envie de rentrer vendredi. Quoi? J'ai pas envie de rentrer vendredi. Tu rentres pas. Non, dis-moi. Mais j'ai pas envie d'aller en Belgique. Manger les bonnes frites. Il faudra que tu m'expliques comment on peut faire. C'est facile, non? C'est plus jeune.
Les 8 heures?
Ouais. Ouais, c'était prévu 7 heures. C'était 8 heures, on a eu plus de 1 heure plus tard.
Ja, men tienes een bakkertje.
Est-ce que tu peux passer devant? Tu peux passer devant? Non, je vais passer devant. Je vais faire, excusez-moi. Salut! Christopher? Yeah.
Oh là là.
Parfait, hein? Attention. Une personne.
Faites quoi, Hamé? Là.
Yes, there's a painting or is this also a cutout?
That's the cutout.
Was it also done in Masur or where was this done?
In Delhi.
Two. One at 11 o'clock, German group, and the second is a class workshop in the afternoon. 4:30. German group is 11 o'clock.
11 and half. Norm number B.
I have your beautiful letter. Let us see if I can. Yes. Where are you putting up?
In the same hotel. Like,
Then, if you want, when I get back there, I'll be having a cup of tea and chai. So if you can drop in there for you are one of the you are one of the participants in the Hinani. No, I'll ask you this question. So, because in another 10-15 minutes I'll be back in the you can come tomorrow is otherwise meet me in the morning, 11 o'clock, evening 5. 4:30, yeah?
yes.
Il n'y en a plus 36. Il y en a mis combien
36.
On a 36 Non, je crois qu'ils n'ont pas.
Eh bien, appuie. Tu tournes et tu appuies.
Du flash.
Non, c'est pas nécessaire.
Non, alors oui, tu prends une photo.
Dépêche-toi, je vais laisser tomber.
Made by Omar's son. Omar's son. The artist. He made this.
So cost equivalent of the cost.
Mignon.
Mignon.
Mignon. Comment ça s'appelle
3 cents Canadian was $1. I also got thank you for this. And please write a note of thanks to him. Because I don't know his name and address.
I know it's we've bought them.
Anyhow, you can give his name and address to her. Thank you. Because I may drop a line of appreciation. I see in your heart.
Oh, you would like that? Great heart for it.
Where is this rosemary?
There, 7 ends. Yeah.
Mais va là-bas. Oh Christopher, tu me filmes. Allez, 2 secondes. 1, 2. Mets-toi devant, comme ça il te filme. Oui, comme ça. Carole, elle aura un souvenir de nous. Ah oui, c'est vrai.
But the peripheral energy
clean பண்ணும்போது I thought I am cleaning the back portion. And what I did, it happened to be the right portion.
நானும் உங்களோட சேர்ந்தவன் பார்த்தேன். அதனால அம்மார் கேட்டாரு, இதுல கூட நீங்க ட்வீன்னான்னு கேட்டாரு. Are you twin even in this? Same thing by opening knife. I also opened the knife and got the
Qu'est-ce qu'il a dit encore?
Twins.
Qu'est-ce qu'il a dit? Jacqueline.
Je sais pas, parce qu'ils ont tous les deux. Ils
Swami Vimalananda. Vimala. I am living with Swami.
Swami, Swami.
I am with Swami Chidananda. Yeah, for the past 35 years.
In India,
Come. Art of reviews. Okay, thank you.
And my wife